All right, today we're gathering with Morgan Page, who is host of Morgan's Pop Talks, the podcast, as well as a new show called Seriously with her husband. Morgan is an expert on all things Bravo, celebrity, reality TV, and all the above. And she even got into some Summer House drama recently. So I'm excited to chat with her about that. Thrilled to have Morgan back on the show. Morgan, thanks for being here. Happy Monday. How are you?
I'm great. Happy to be here. I always look forward to talking with you, and my favorite topics are on the docket today. So I'm ready to
Yep.
go.
Yeah, I was thinking like I was putting this together and I was like, it really is fun when Summer House and Southern Charm are on at the same time,
Yeah,
especially now with everything going on. But like, it really hits when we have multiple shows in this universe on.
totally. And I mean, I know this is different for different demographics, but like the Summer House crew, that's my age group. Those are
Me
like the
too.
people and not really so much Vanderpump Rules anymore, but Southern Charm, some of them, would be
Uh,
my friends in real life. So I feel like that's why I connect with them more than like say Housewives or something. No shade, but I always do feel so much more connected to Summer House for whatever reason.
yeah, and I also feel like when there are sort of big he said, she said things that are happening on these shows, I think because they are slightly younger, and again, it's not to be like ageist or whatever, but like the social media component of that, like the
Yeah.
investigations hit differently because like they're just like more that generation's a little bit more adept at social media and more natural with it. And so I feel like there's more to read into, you know what I mean, when we have like a breakup
Totally.
or a whatever. I don't know.
Totally.
Um so I don't think this season of Southern Charm has been very good, but I feel like it hasn't been bad, and I feel like what has helped it, which is again not the best thing, is that like the stuff outside of the show has added to it. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like whether it is
Yeah.
Paige and Greg or Venita and JT, which we'll get into. Do you feel the same way?
Yeah, for me, it's been a little bit of a slow burn.
Yeah.
I think the last couple episodes have been way better than the first half of the season, which was kind of giving me like Vanderpump Rules PTSD,
Yeah.
because that last season was really painful to get through like the halfway mark. And then, of course, it wasn't what Vanderpump Rules once was. We all know that, right? But slowly but surely, it started to get better. And I do feel the same way. I am a little over the Sienna of it all. Like,
Me
I
too.
think as a viewer, it's just so blatantly obvious that she's not into him. So I don't understand why we're now on the third straight episode of what feels like only talking about Sienna. So I'm interested to see if that kind of tapers up. Well, yeah, I mean, finale this
Finale,
week.
yeah,
So
in 3 days. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. What is your read on that? Is it does that she was never into it? Do you think that what Shep's saying it was true about like her like her being more into it and then sort of pulling back when the cameras went up? Like, what do you think actually happened there?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really think that Shep lies, does he? I mean, he's never been like head over heels in love for anybody except for Taylor. I think it's interesting because, the whole cast is like painting Sienna as like a clout chaser, which she may or may not be. Like
Right.
I don't know. What we didn't see was the early stages of their relationship. I'm using air quotes,
Hmm.
if that's what you want to call it, right? But we don't really know. But what we are seeing is, her in the Bahamas and how she's reacting. And my thing is, there's clearly like miscommunication going on there, right? Or maybe Sienna is having trouble letting Shep down gently because I don't know how old she is either. She's like in her 20s,
She
right?
must be, I think she's pretty young. Yeah.
I had difficult time letting people down easily in my 20s too, like our frontal lobe is not fully developed at that time. We're not the best at handling conflict. Um, but I don't get clout chaser from her. Like if it was a clout chasing thing, I feel like she would be more involved. She would be on more than two episodes.
I feel like this is my earlier theory, and I think seeing her on the show sort of cast doubt on this. But like, I feel like maybe if that was the case, once she sort of got in the environment of the cameras and it being a reality show,
Hmm.
she
Got scared.
clammed
Yeah.
up. Like it was overwhelming to her. Again, like that would make sense.
Hmm.
Um, but it's hard, but it's like if she had a didn't she have a boyfriend the whole time, apparently, according to some of these people? So it's sort of like then it's like, all right, it's just sort of like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
What are we doing
Yeah.
here? Like,
Honestly, the whole thing with Southern Charm right now is really difficult to comprehend because I feel like we've started to get more of the cast members, like not blatantly saying it, but in a roundabout way, saying that the show causes them to act differently.
yeah.
Like, when Shep told Craig Sienna's coming tonight, he was like, "Oh, I wish she wasn't coming to this dinner tonight. Now I have to confront her." You know what I mean? So it's like, oh, you have to
Mm,
confront her because you're on a show on Bravo and there's this dinner scene, and it's like iconic dinner scenes. There's always this
right.
stuff going on. And then you have someone like JT, too, who's coming out and saying the TV show ruined every single relationship that I had. So it's just interesting to see. That line really stuck with me. Oh, no, now I have to
Yeah, that's a
confront her
good
at
shout.
this dinner because you're bringing her on to something that we're filming.
Right, totally. And it's like, it's interesting also too because you wonder Charleston is such a small town and like there's like this pool of people to pull from, and I feel like it's actually like really impacting that city, not in a necessarily negative way, but like people go there to like go to these spots and like they
Yeah,
they run
yeah.
into all these people. It's a small place, and so it's like at a certain point, like is this sort of the tension that happens where it's like they can't tell reality from the show, whereas like in a bigger city I think maybe like there's more room for that to sort of like not be as
Right.
enmesh. I don't know, like that's you're right, the show is it's sort of like fraying at the edges a little bit when it comes to that kind of stuff. And I think that kind of ties up into like let's talk about the Venita and JT thing, where it's like they're both basically like they're complicating the timeline of this whole thing
Hmm.
and calling out production, and like now it's like I don't know, now it's like we're kind of questioning the authenticity of, or sort of the, what's the word I'm looking for, like the can we trust production at all, honestly,
Right,
with the
right,
show,
right.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you made a video about sort of the complicated timeline about Venita and JT, and I obviously wanted to talk to you about this. Have you gotten any clarity in the past couple days since
I've
you
never been more confused in my entire life
okay,
about anything
okay.
ever on Bravo. I'm like, okay, I thought I understood that the Bahamas have happened after the Branzino moment, which I've said the word Branzino more in the
Oh
past
my
2 weeks
God.
than I
I was
have
thinking the
like
same
my
thing when I was
entire
putting together my
life.
notes. I was like, Branzino's so relevant right now.
So we saw it first, but it happened after, right? Well, then
Yeah.
this week we get the little curveball of the after show where Venita says, I invited JT as my plus one. And he says to me on the phone, well, my girlfriend wouldn't like that very much. We didn't see him say that, right, on the show. So
Hmm.
now I'm like, okay, did he tell you after the Branzino? Did he tell you in the Bahamas? Did he tell you on that phone call? And like what happened in what order? It's so confusing. I've never been more confused.
Yeah. And then to add on top of that, when Vanita said that the Branzino moment actually happened after the trip, but was inserted into the show before, JT's girlfriend commented on some post about it saying that no, actually, they had all gone to dinner with JT's mom before filming in April,
Hmm.
where she was introduced as his girlfriend and Venita was there. And then JT, I think today posted this video, or yesterday posted a video being like reminiscing on the good old days, enjoyed filming with my mom and sister and introducing them to my then new girlfriend, Allie. Glad Venita was able to join us for a fun meal. And she's in a video sitting next to them at which I presume is maybe the same dinner that his girlfriend's talking about. I don't think they're
Right,
like going to
right.
dinner every week together. You know what I mean? So like
Yeah.
then they're saying that she's known the whole time. But it's like, then it fucks with your head because you're like, okay, if she knew the whole time, then she's sort of maybe the implication is she's trying to get in the middle of their relationship. But on
Yeah.
the other hand, there's clearly behavior from JT where
JT,
he
right, right.
is leading her on. He's sending her all these paragraphs of text messages when she's in the Bahamas. Like,
Yeah.
does it go both ways? Is she flubbing with the timeline a little bit, and is he leading her on? I don't
I
know.
think so. I think both
Okay,
can be true. First of all, I want to know what the text messages said.
me
Like
too.
I know, Bravo, you can get a camera behind that phone and we can screenshot it and we can decode it. People have done it before. I want to know like what warrants this whole long thing because in my mind, if Venita doesn't know that he has a girlfriend, what's the need for the long? Like to me, that is and this is totally an assumption. right? But what else would you be writing paragraph books about
Hmm.
besides the fact that I like you, but I can't be with you? You know,
Right.
if it was like a love bomb, she would be like, we're in love, and look, he told me XYZ. But something about that feels off. And I did get a DM from somebody in the Southern Charm world way early on in the season that insinuated that JT wanted to make a splash,
Hmm.
wanted to,
Which I
kind of
believe.
make his mark on the show, because it's this weird juxtaposition where you have the viewers who want you to be, real and authentic and not make everything up. And then you have a producer who wants drama, you know, no matter what. So it's like, who are you trying to keep happy? If you don't keep production happy, you don't have a job. If you don't keep the viewers happy, your mental health is probably like all over the place. So I feel like both JT and Venita are also in this weird limbo where they're not one of the mainstay original cast members, that have been on the show for a long time. They're both fairly newer. So how do you solidify a long running reality TV career? I think sometimes you do things that you wouldn't normally do.
Yeah, and Vanita's been on for 4 seasons now. I think this is the first time that sort of one of her personal storylines has really been like a little bit more front and center,
Hmm.
honestly. And like, I think, they don't come into the situation sort of with total clean slates. It's like JT is the guy who sort of took it to Austin last season. I think that endeared him to viewers, but it pissed off his castmates. And I think
Right.
Vanita's coming into this like, Vanita gets a lot of hate online from a lot of Southern Charm viewers because for a variety of reasons, I think. I think that like I don't want to prescribe any sort of label to that, but like there are
Hmm.
various reasons why she gets that. So they're not coming into this, and then now I'm seeing all these the comments are really like JT vindicated, like once anything's called into question, and part of that's also because there's no footage of him calling Pat a bitch from earlier in the season, as Craig
Hmm.
claimed. Like there's sort of this buildup of stuff where it's like I think people are actually ready to defend JT in this, which is
Yeah.
really interesting.
Yeah.
Um, and like there's also the whole thing from the after show too, where Venita was like, I paid $5,000 to have his suit tailored for the opening event, and Leva said, "Did he Venmo you back?" And she kind of like smirked, implying that like, and she said like, "That's my best friend," implying that maybe he didn't pay her back.
Right.
And then JT posts the receipts. No, I PayPal'd her $4,000 back the next day. Like,
Yeah. And then Vanita saying, well, Leva said Venmo. He
right. And
PayPal'd
it's
me. And I'm
like,
like, girl, that's
well,
not doing yourself
yeah, that's
any
tough.
favors.
That's tough.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's so frustrating because I'm sort of like, you guys, like, you know what you've sent to each other, that screenshots can be posted, like
Right.
two can play that game basically. I'm just sort of like,
Yeah.
why are we making these big blanket claims and statements that can easily be debunked or complicated?
And part of me too, like, wonders how much of it is like an editing issue, because, and
It
not to
could
say that
be.
this happened on the after show, but like, ever since Vanita said that, about the timeline being off, I watched the after show and, like you described it, that's how it went down. She smirks and was like, that's my best friend. She could have in the next breath said, yeah, you did. Pay
And
me
they
back.
cut it out.
Yeah, you never
Yeah,
know. So
they
it's like
probably she probably did.
yeah, you don't know what to trust at all. And especially right now, I feel like with all of, not to draw comparisons at all, because they're not the same, but it just reminds me of like the Justin Baldoni, Blake Lively stuff. Because Justin Baldoni's lawyers is always coming out with like receipt, receipt, receipt,
Hmm.
receipt, people are more drawn to just believing Justin
Right.
Baldoni's side, right? I'm not getting into that debate right
Me
now,
neither.
but that's what it feels like. JT, he just keeps coming out with receipt, 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 and that's hard to ignore. So people are like, yeah, like you said, vindication for JT, where
Hmm.
I don't think he's the villain by any stretch of the imagination, but I don't think he's 100% innocent either.
Definitely not. And we know from his track record that he has like he loves to add some flair to things. You know what I mean? Like that
Yeah.
he loves the show. He loves, and not the reality show. Like he just loves putting on a show. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And like that's
Yeah.
that's what makes him. That's what allowed him to make a splash last season, honestly. And like he was, to me, is he my favorite person? No, but there's something refreshing about him being this new guy on the scene. Like, as we know, also Southern Charm is a boys' club. Like that is like basically what the show is, and so
Yeah.
I do think that the women are sort of disadvantaged, like from the like they kind of start 10 feet behind the men in these situations with this show. That's just sort of how it's become. Um, the other thing the last thing I want to say is sort of like I guess like in the show there was a voiceover of her saying like I knew he had a girlfriend like in the Bahamas or something like that, but we didn't. You see her moving her lips, and then they add in the Bahamas. You don't see her saying that, and then it comes back to her talking.
Yeah.
So people think that was like again manipulative editing, and I don't know if they have to resort to such manipulative editing for this show. It's sort of like it kind of just kind of doubles down on the idea that like they don't really have that much to go on to like to give us. There's not the
Yeah.
content's not there right now this season.
Yeah. I do feel like, I always compare, and not just me, other people too, compare the three boys, like they're the housewives of Southern Charm, you know?
Totally.
Craig, Austin, and Shep are really like the anchors. I think I was reading Craig's book the other night, and I'm not a reader. I was like, I'm gonna pretend to be a reader. I'm gonna try to read.
Obsessed.
And it was like the one book that I had in in my house. And he actually said that the show was supposed to be named Southern Gentleman,
Mm.
which to me does like set the whole landscape for what the
Yeah.
show is about. And it's like, I feel like now more than ever, you're seeing online where people are like, oh, the girls had like a slumber party and it was edited out. And like Madison has become such a fan favorite where I don't necessarily know. Like, do they only focus on the guy perspective or not only, but the majority of the
Majority.
focus because that's been the blueprint from the get-go. Like, was it done intentionally? I kind of wish that it wasn't, but it does feel like that.
Me too. And I also think that, obviously the men that we have on the show have been on the show for longer than any of the women. Like none of
Yeah,
the original women are still on the show. We had Cam, she left. Catherine went out and, flames of glory, I guess. And
right.
then Madison's been around for a long time, but like, then we find surprising women, promising women on the show, like Olivia or people like that, and they let them go after a season or two. And it's like, they're
Yeah,
not
you know
letting us get
why?
invested in the women.
Because it centers around the guys. So
Yeah.
as soon as they realized that Olivia had no more ties to Austin and she had moved on and she was back and forth between Dallas, they were like, okay. The only reason they kept Taylor was to see the fallout from Shep. I would bet money that Taylor will not be back next year
Well, because she
because
didn't play ball this season either with the Gaston stuff. It was like
right.
there was stuff there on a platter for them that was like pretty good tea from that Sally brought in, and Taylor just like canceled her party, didn't play ball with it, which was
Yep.
like that's not what a reality star does in that situation.
It looks like we're going to see Molly kiss and Shep,
Mhm.
so that might set something up for next season as well. I do also wonder, Sally and Craig, is that a thing? I mean,
I think that Sally is playing it well because she's being very like open, but also cryptic at the same time. Like I watch What
right.
Happens Live, and I think that she's like, all right, that's my ticket to next season. And you know what?
Yeah.
Good for her. Good for
Yeah.
her. You know, I'm into that for
Sally
her.
has the most impressive reality TV resume ever. Like, people would be lucky to get cast on one show if that's what they wanted. How do you get cast on four reality shows? That's insane to me.
And somehow, we talked about Sienna being accused of being a clout chaser. Sally to me doesn't feel like that.
Yeah.
Like I still really like Sally, and like I would be
Yeah.
excited about the prospect of like, I don't know, there's something about her that doesn't have that. Most people who have done four reality shows, I would call them a clout chaser or sort of whatever. But
Right.
I like that from her.
Long live
Um,
Sally.
yeah. So let's use Craig and Paige sort of as a transition into the Summer House chat. Obviously, we talked about the shows being both on at the same time, and I think it's fascinating because Southern Charm is just sort of like, like a month or two earlier than the Summer House timeline that we're seeing, and I think it's like you see like some hints on Southern Charm about what went wrong, and then on Summer House it's like pretty clear as day, like the fundamental issues that were in their relationship. Where are you kind of sitting right now when it comes to the Paige and Craig of it all and what we're seeing on the shows?
It's hard. I feel like again, I think not we all, because there are some like hardcore Team Craig, Team Paige people.
Yeah.
I just see it as like an adult relationship that didn't work out, and I do see all the online hate for Paige that people say like, oh, she wasted his time. And your late 20s and early 30s are such pivotal points in your life. And I know it's I'm speaking about my career, but she's talking about her relationship. But even when people would ask me, like in my mid 20s, where do you see yourself in 5 years? I would never answer because as you get older, your wants and your desires change. And like, you don't want to be locked into that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? So I feel like in a relationship, especially at that age, it's very easy for your wants and stuff to change. You're in this new relationship with this hunk of a guy, fan favorite on Bravo, and not saying that Paige isn't, I'm just talking about at the beginning of the relationship. This was probably her mindset. Um, I don't know how long I want to be on reality TV. Like in a couple
Hmm.
years, I might want to settle down, have kids. Like, he's got his own thing going on. Great catch. Her career takes a totally different turn and she wants to follow it and pursue it. And I'm like, who is out here villainizing
I
someone
know.
because of that? And at the same time, they're like, well, they had all these conversations on Summer House and like Paige was just dragging her feet. And I'm like, you can't make a decision until you get to the destination too. Like
Mm,
you can tell that she loved him and wanted these things with
definitely.
him and you do what you can to try to make it work. But it's like you can't just snap your fingers and realize like this type of stuff takes time to realize and to actually have honestly the courage to act on it.
I totally agree. And I think that first point that you made is really apt in terms of like, that this time in their life and really kind of figuring out what she wants to do. And this is also, at least for me, I feel way more confident in my ability to step into those things. Like it probably took her time to like be like, oh my God, like I have such big opportunity here. Like let me just
Yeah.
continue to lean into it and lean into it. And on the flip side of that, it's like also what you said with the actually deciding to sort of end it, there's a whole other added pressure on either of them or any of these people that like they're the number one couple on Bravo. Like
Right, right.
that is a lot of pressure to live up to, and it's also a lot of people that you're letting down, quote unquote, if you do end it. And you also, again, she probably knew she was risking to villainize herself by it coming out that she was the one that ended it. You know what I mean? Because Craig is
Yeah.
sort of like one of the golden boys of Bravo, and people like feel protective over him, and I understand that, but I don't know. Like I think about the scene on this past episode of Summer House where they're at that Australian restaurant having dinner and Dylan at Bravo by Bet just sort of caught this flip that happened in his what he was talking about. He says, if we were married and we had kids, you can't choose to work all the time. That was the quote. So he sort of
Oh, yeah.
changed the pronouns he was using, and that
Right,
I don't know. I thought that was really a really kind of really good Easter egg, or and it's probably very subconscious that he said that, but
right.
the whole conversation is about how she wants to continue pursuing her career, and then he's like, "No, you can't. If we continue down this road, like you can't work like that." Like, was it a Freudian slip? I don't know, but it was
In
telling, I
her
thought.
mind, that probably, it's like little stuff like that stays with you.
Totally.
So, we see in the trailer her crying to Sierra, of these fears, like if I do, if Craig and I don't work out, is all of this stuff gonna go away? And, if something like that is said on camera, imagine what kind of stuff
I
is said
know.
behind the scenes.
I
So,
know.
and even if he didn't mean anything, by it, it sticks with you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then separately, and we'll see the conversation this week, the Spritz drama of it all. Like I know that you're with me and that you have been looking forward to this day for a
Yeah,
year,
a
like
long
over
time.
basically a year now.
Yeah.
I don't know. And like I don't think that has anything to do with like what went down with Paige and Craig, but I do like to her it probably feels like such unnecessary like superfluous drama that she like has to deal with because of like dating a reality star who like happens to
Yeah.
fall at, like the perfect intersection of like these webs of connections they have.
Yeah.
That couldn't have helped.
No, and what I saw interesting, I saw this comment in somebody's TikTok comment section because I don't know, you've seen like the sneak peek, right, where Kyle wants to talk to Craig immediately and Craig is like, "No, I'll talk to you tomorrow."
Hmm.
I saw somebody say, Craig doesn't have a lot of control in his romantic relationship. So he's flexing that control muscle in all of his friendships. When you
Mm.
look at it, like he kind of is, especially when you look at what's happening with him in Austin, like it feels very it's my way or the highway. And then he gets to the summer house and same thing. And I even agree with Craig. Like have the conversation tomorrow. Let's get
Right.
settled in. Let's have dinner. But it is just interesting. Is that what's happening? It kind of seems like it.
That's a really good read on how, and that's again, that is the only, we only get that when the two shows are airing at the same time, and you can really
Right.
see how somebody is carrying themselves and what they're sort of going through at that time. We wouldn't have gotten that. Like, that's a great through line. I really, really like that. That's
Yeah. And
interesting.
even Austin, saying I was shocked when I saw Craig say to Paige, you can't choose work all the time because that's what I've been saying to you, you
Mm-hmm.
know? So the parallels are all over the place.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Okay. Wow. My mind's a little blown by those connections. I love that. Um, So you recently got into a little bit of a Instagram drama,
Couple.
Morgan, with Wes
I
Wilson on
know.
Instagram. You
I
made a video
know.
basically about his appearance on Jason Tartick's podcast, where he talked about how like he can't really envision Lindsay being on the show anymore now that she has a baby. And then Lindsay commented on it, and then I think it was Comments by Bravo that reposted it. He called your video clickbait. She said she'd go to media war with him. And now they apparently squashed it. That's what he said on
Yeah,
Watch What
yeah.
Happens Live last week. Have you and him squashed it?
Yeah, we have.
Okay,
We have.
good. Good.
But, I will say that I do feel like a little vindicated by it because, okay, how do I want to start this? I never thought Wes was being malicious towards Lindsay whatsoever. I listened to the interview, I heard his tone. Jason asked, do you think she'll be back? He's like, there's no way. Like, what are the, I can't babysit. It was very
Right.
flippant. So the point of my video was not like, Wes, how dare you? But it came at a time where there had been multiple references by newer cast members talking about the right place for an OG on the show. Jesse's reaction to Lindsay being
Hmm.
pregnant kind of rubbed some people the wrong way.
Yep, me too.
Gabby's comments to Carl about, his place in the house rubbed
Hmm.
people the wrong way.
Hmm.
And now this. So I was frustrated in my video. I'm not going to deny that. I think it came across as directly being pointed at West when it really wasn't. It was, like I said, kind of like a snowball effect. However, I felt vindicated when Lindsay shared her thoughts on one of the podcasts that she was on because it was exactly the point that I was trying to make, where you can say anything else besides there's no way. Why is there no way? Because she's a new mom.
Right.
That's it. That's the only reason, right? You could have said anything else. You could have said, I hope so. What is Summer House without Lindsay? Because she is integral, in my opinion, to the DNA of the show, as is Kyle, as is Amanda, as is Paige, as is Carl. All of these people are
Yeah.
important to the show. So, I did tell him, I'm like, I meant nothing malicious by it whatsoever. And I do feel like my frustration might have misconstrued your intent. But I still feel like, any other word choice would have been sufficient.
It was more of a collective frustration for you versus a specific one with him,
Yeah.
and he was the example. And I
Yeah.
agree. It's sort of like it's the same feeling as when a new housewife comes onto a show and is doing too much and like coming. It's like no, like this is they've built this house proverbially. You know what I mean? Like
Right,
this is
right.
their show, and it wouldn't be. It's when you're new and you come into a show like this that is sort of hitting its peak. I would say the peak of its powers. Like it didn't get there overnight. Like we know that Summer House has been a slog, and they had like and it got good as it went along, but it
Right.
didn't start there. And
Yeah.
you should be thankful for the work they've done to get it there. So
But I'm not gonna lie, I was like getting upset. Like and I understand too, because if I was on the other end of that, like if I'm West and I see that on my feed, like it's gonna cause me to be upset too. But to be like all time clickbait, I'm like, dude, I literally
mhm.
took exactly what you said. Like that's not
No, it's
clickbait.
not clickbait.
My
No.
reaction to it was my reaction to it, but I didn't misconstrue what you said.
Yeah, you said what you said. You
Right.
know what I
Right. And
mean?
I don't want it to get all
Yeah.
riled up again.
No,
Oh my
no,
gosh, I was
the
like,
clickbait, but the clickbait term is just like so flippantly used, I think, a lot of the time too. It's like, no, like
yeah,
that's so diminishing of what you did. And like, and you know, you're an expert in what you do. Like, you're not just gonna like, you don't make clickbait. That's not what
yeah,
you do.
yeah.
No, no, you're adept at picking out moments and highlighting them. And I think that he was probably frustrated about what he said and he took it
Trying to,
out.
yeah.
You know what I
Trying,
mean?
yeah, trying to just make his intentions clearer, which, like I said, I never thought it was malicious. I never said it was
No,
malicious,
and it
what he
wasn't.
said.
It didn't come across as malicious in terms of, I think, what he said or what you said.
And I think he's just, ov not overly sensitive, but hyper aware of
Definitely.
the comment section,
Yeah, and I think that
which,
that's a dangerous place to be as a reality star. And I
yeah,
think especially, I mean, one of my frustrations, not frustrations, but I think how he's carrying himself this season, especially given like how he sort of had a test case with that reunion performance he had last year where he totally shut down and he still feels shut down on this season overall to me. Like he's like, he's leaving early before they all go out and like sneaking out to hook up with somebody and not telling anybody about it. Like he's being way too careful. And that is actually, I understand the instinct, but it gives me pause though, because
yeah,
I think that Wes is a huge star and he's an amazing find for the show, but like your instinct should not as a human, yeah, maybe it should be to like be more careful, but like as a reality star, you have to still bring stuff to
yeah.
filming, you
Well, and
know?
I also think it kind of should send a message to the audience where like you're allowed to have opinions and you're allowed
Definitely.
to have reactions to things. But at the same time, when you're like sliding into a Bravo Celebrities DM to like send them death threats over, a relationship that didn't work out, like
Hang it
you
up.
lost the plot.
Yeah.
It's like I said, the snowball effect that is ruining reality TV. Like you can like somebody, you can hate somebody, but at the end of the day, it's all essential to make a
Hmm.
good show. And if you are, destroying somebody's mental health in their DMs, they're not going to want to participate in that. We don't
No,
want to watch people
totally.
play patty cake with each other. Like it's a reality TV show.
Exactly. And also, like, if the person who was at the other end of the initial actions or behaviors, who is Sierra, who is seemingly more or less over it, moving on,
Yeah.
like, then we can move on as well as
Yeah.
viewers. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
we get invested, but we got to keep the ball rolling. And you can't, and if this is the treatment that people get when they come on and are a little messy, they're not going to want to stay. They're not going, people aren't going to want to jump into this. And I don't know. I totally agree with that sentiment. Um, Last couple topics for you, Jesse and Lexi. For me, where I am right now with this is like I feel like we're on the verge of her sort of getting portrayed as like the crazy one in this situation. But I feel like he sort of love bombed her that first week.
Yeah.
She met him where he was leading them,
Yeah.
and then he immediately pulled back once certain like tidbits and details like came out. And now I feel like people are already sort of on his side of it, and I'm like, I don't know. I think
Yeah.
Lexi was led there.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, I feel like, it's not like she was chasing him around the house and he was ignoring her and is like, who is this new girl? I don't know you. He's like asking to make out with her, texting her, I miss you, like he definitely was interested. And the moment, at least it appeared to me, that he flipped his switch was when she's like, I need to make sure that it's just me and you getting to know each other. Like,
Hmm.
I don't want to be out here doing this if you're very casual. And he's like, that's hard for me. I'm like, it's hard for you. Like, what do you mean? You're in this summer share house with this girl. Like, you mean you can't chill out Monday through Thursday to see like where this love connection could potentially lead?
Well, at that time though, it's like you think about it, he's like just a couple months off of his newfound reality stardom. His DMs are
Right,
on
right.
fire. He's probably not to speculate, but I'm sure he's getting it in quite a bit at this time.
Yeah, yeah.
So, again, it's not defending it, but that would be a huge change in his lifestyle, and I understand that. But like,
Yeah.
he's already not communicating it well, and you
Yeah.
can just sense the dumpster fire that's coming.
Yeah. And it's like, did you learn nothing from Sierra and West? I mean, it's like copy paste. You should
I
have
know.
learned all the do's and don'ts
Oh
from
my
what you
God.
just watched your best friend go through.
I know. I know. Morgan, the last thing that I'm curious about your perspective on is obviously like Danielle showed up at this one weekend in the house when I think Gabby wasn't there, and and so she kind of filled a spot. And it was sort of like right after we had heard that she wasn't coming back to the show, or she wasn't going to be full time, I guess. And I'm curious what you make of how she sort of carried herself in this weekend, because she made some like pretty interesting comments about Lindsay, and both in the scenes but also in her confessionals, and I thought that that was like kind of unexpected. They were very like passive aggressive, and actually kind of not even passive, like pretty like overt. What did you make of that?
I was surprised. I
Me
think
too.
we all were. I was surprised to kind of put the puzzle pieces together to the fact that they're not actually that close. Like, they were best friends for a long time. They had the falling out, and, we saw them last summer kind of reconcile and get back to a good place. But I'm like, if she doesn't know that he's not living with her until
Hmm.
this particular moment on camera, how close are they actually? You know what I mean?
Right.
That feels like something that a good friend of yours would know and not need to bring it up. So I was surprised, especially because her reasoning for leaving the show was that she like needed some space from it, like she was talking about it's done some damage to her mental health. So
Hmm.
to like jump in rather quickly, what feels like, what was it, like the second weekend there? And then to just be very unfiltered about Lindsay, where in the past, I mean, that's kind of where I don't want to say all of the Danielle fans, but she got a lot of backlash for her opinions on Carl and Lindsay.
Right. Right.
So for her to be just ready to jump back in when it seemed like that was the reason that she left because of the backlash, I'm kind of confused.
And like I can't tell if it's like because she did get she wasn't, I wouldn't say vindicated necessarily on the Carl and Lindsay stuff, but like she some of her comments proved to be correct in sort of her assessments of that of their relationship. So maybe
Yeah.
she thought that this would be true yet again, or maybe if you sort of create this friction with Lindsay again, does that give her more opportunity to come back to the show? Like
Yeah.
there are calculations that are made in these people's minds, I'm sure, but I'm trying to figure out why she came so hard about it, and like yeah. And I think you're right. I think that has said somewhere that like after sort of taking herself out of the equation with the show, she needed some space from the cast. But you'd think that if her and Lindsay were super close, that wouldn't Lindsay would be sort of excluded from that need, right?
Because that was like the connector,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it was like that's what kept her connected to everybody else. I don't see her calling Kyle at 3 p.m. on a
Yeah.
Friday. Um, I want to give Danielle the benefit of the doubt and say that, she has good intentions when it comes to Lindsay. I mean, looking back on
I
the
think so too.
situation with Carl, I do think that she was privy to a lot of stuff that we didn't see.
Hmm.
Again, I don't think that her delivery was the best. I think in a couple different, the CEO and founder, delivery is not always the
Mm.
strong suit.
Mm.
But for the time being, and maybe I'll be proven wrong, but I want to believe that it was out of a place of looking out for Lindsay.
I think that's a good place to be, a
But
good
at
place
the
to
same time, like what if it's not, what's Lindsay gonna do? You know what like if she's like single momming it up, as Danielle would say, like it's gonna happen. So what's the point of you trying to bring it up here? Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. And I think that I was talking to somebody who mentioned that Danielle was raised by a single mom, and her brother were, and it's sort of like maybe some of her maybe
Yeah,
this is coming from that place as well, sort of her experience in life, and who knows. But I agree, it must, I think it's ultimately out of concern. It's just, again, sometimes it lands with a little bit of a thud, you know what I mean? And
yeah.
like um yeah, and I also think that like I just agree with how Lindsay is handling this really like, specific situation that she's going through, which is like, she's pregnant with this guy who she was only dating for a couple months. Like, it makes complete sense to focus on the pregnancy and the baby before
Yeah.
you figure anything else out. Like, why do you have to, like, the idea of being pregnant and then also moving in with somebody who you like, in the grand scheme of things, don't know that well? Like,
Yeah.
that's, I
She
think she's
needs
doing the
some
right
breathing
thing.
room.
I think she's
And
doing the right
I
thing.
know that's like sounds like an idiotic thing to say, now that she has a child, is still with this guy, but
Yeah.
I feel like she just needed even the
Yes.
baby wasn't here yet, she was pregnant, she needed some time by herself, you
She's
know.
filming.
Yeah, and if he's spending the night as much as, she says he is, like they will get to that place eventually on their own timetable. But, like Lindsay has said, historically, she dives in feet head
Hmm.
first, all the way in. And yes, a baby is like pretty diving in, but she's controlling what she can in the relationship as well with taking
That's a good way to
other
put it.
aspects slower.
That's a really good way to put it. And I think it's, as people, we just have to learn from our past and like our mistakes. And she's learned,
Yeah.
I think. And that's just, she's shown that growth. Well, I think that's a nice place to land, Morgan. I think that's a good place to wrap it up. How often do you put out new episodes? Where can people find you, follow you, do all the plugs before we sign off?
So new episodes of Morgan's Pop Talks drops every Thursday, anywhere that you listen to your podcast. You can also watch on YouTube. The Seriously Show, which is more of a comedy, couples, lighthearted fun, is on Tuesdays. You can search The Seriously Show wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. And if you want more, you can join the Patreon, patreon.com/Morgan's Pop Talks.
Love it. Morgan, always a pleasure.
I
Always
love
opening my
you.
eyes to new things to pay attention to. And we'll do it again soon.
Okay,
Bye.
bye.
I want to gab.